And welcome back to the 2020 Author Fair, our second annual, held through the Rochester Hills Public Library and Rochester Writers. Again, my name is Michael Dwyer, and joining us for this author segment is Suzanne Lipshaw. Suzanne, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And so you have a book out. I love the title, especially as we are working our way through a very unique year and a unique election year. But this is really fun when it comes to election. It's called I Campaigned for Ice Cream, and a boy's quest for ice cream trucks. Tell us about it.
Well, give you a little peek of the book. And yeah, it's a true story about a 9-year-old boy who just happens to be my son, who wondered why ice cream trucks never rolled down the streets of our neighborhood in West Bloomfield. And he questioned it, and I knew it was not allowed, but I had no idea why. And I said to him, why don't we investigate and find out what's going on? And when he did, he found out that it was illegal to have ice cream trucks in West Bloomfield due to an antiquated peddler's law. He didn't think that was fair, and he called the township to find out what he could do about it, and that started his campaign for ice cream trucks.
And so then you've put it all into a picture book. And what age group is this book for?
It really works best for 2nd to 5th graders. K through 2 enjoy hearing it, but it's got some heavier vocabulary in it. I'm also a teacher, so I worked really hard to get some Common Core concepts in for social studies and that kind of thing. There's a glossary in the back of the book that explains some of the harder terms. But I've done presentations at schools for K2 and 2-5.
Okay.
Feedback is that, for 2-5, the book really hits a lot of the key items that they are interested in and that they have knowledge of.
Will adults get something out of this when they read it with their children?
Absolutely. I mean, anyone, like you were saying, this is a crazy time right now. And we are all learning, no matter what side of the fence you're on, how important it is that your voice gets heard. And that's exactly what Josh did. And we're also learning that things just don't happen quickly. You have to work hard and you have to persevere. And that's also what Josh did. So there's lessons in it for kids of all ages.
So it's not a matter of which flavor ice cream you get from the ice cream truck. It's just the ability to order ice cream from the ice cream truck.
Exactly. And then all of us have incredible memories of ice cream trucks, and my husband and I did. And it just seemed like such a shame that our neighborhood wasn't able to experience that. And, being able to share that with all of West Bloomfield has been incredible. So
was it a neighborhood thing or a citywide thing?
Citywide. So he had to go to town hall, and he had to initially write a letter to town hall asking to be put on an agenda just to bring the idea of changing the law up. He went with a bunch of friends and gathered them up, and they went door to door and got petition signatures. Then he took all of that to the board, presented his case, and there was a series of 3 meetings before they actually could vote on the final decision.
Okay, and do we not want to give away the ending of the book on whether it was an ice cream day or a quiet day?
We probably don't, but I think I already kind of gave it away, some of the stuff I was saying. So yes, it was a sweet success. So
that's a good way of putting it. So I imagine that that would open up the doors for a lot of different ice cream trucks, because there's different businesses I know that in my neighborhood, I have at least two, maybe three different companies that drive through. Um, and so I think that I had never thought about what if they weren't allowed to come. That had never been a thought in my mind. I thought it was just they could do it. But
Right.
so besides the fun of ice cream, because ice cream is fun, uh, it's also quite a learning experience or teaching book on how the process works locally, politically.
Absolutely. There's a lot of civic lessons in there. West Bloomfield happened to be a township um, with a board of supervisors, but it's very similar to having, a mayor with a city council. And the procedures that are talked about in the book about meetings and how the votes are taken are really common in civic government. It's great to use for teachers for persuasive writing, opinion writing. It's also a wonderful book for leadership. I actually work at a school that is a Leader in Me school, which is related to Franklin Covey's 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. And it fits in fantastically with the habits that we teach on what you need to do to be a strong leader. And, the view is that a leader, Josh was the leader in the way that we think of a leader, that he's leading his friends to do this. But leaders have to have certain skills. And Josh was always a quiet kid, but the skills that he was able to develop and use have been priceless to him in his entire life. In fact, he's 28 now, so it's happened
I
quite a
was
while
going
ago.
I was going to ask that. So he started this campaign for ice cream when he was 9
Correct.
and he's 28 now. How long did it take? What was he, maybe 10 by the time a decision had been made?
It was 9 months. So yeah, he had turned 10 by the time a decision was made and the first ice cream truck actually rolled down our street. So,
And all the rules that he helped to change maybe are still in effect?
they are still in effect. And what's crazy is this happens constantly. In fact, just 3 days ago, I talked to somebody that I hadn't talked to in a while, and she said, "We were just thinking about you. I was telling somebody how it's because of your son that we still get ice cream trucks coming through West Bloomfield. And they just came by the other day and we got to enjoy it." And so Josh is kind of a little local hero in the city of West Bloomfield.
I can imagine. Now, has he gone on to do anything else like that as an adult with working with municipalities or legislation?
He has not. He's actually a space engineer. So he followed another passion of his that actually dates back to when he was in 4th grade. He's always wanted to work on rocket ships and satellites. But again, all the skills that he learned, a big part of his job is persuading companies to go with his company, to engineer the satellites. And that persuasion that he learned back when he was 9 is what he uses a lot of those same skills now at 28.
I was going to say most people's dealing with the political wheels can leave a bad taste in your mouth. And fortunately, now you can get ice cream to get rid of that bad taste.
Absolutely. I like how you put that.
So what's next on the horizon? You've got another book in the works?
I have a book that is coming out in October 2022 with a small publisher called Doodle and Peck out in Oklahoma. It is Mighty Mahi is the working title. I don't know what the finished title is going to be at this point in time. It's also a nonfiction book about a turtle that I'm also a teacher, and that my class had adopted, and it's the story of the turtle and its rehabilitation. Along with that, I am participating in a mentorship right now with SCBWI Michigan. I won a mentorship with Patty Newman, and she is working with me on a book that happens to be about a satellite that Josh, he didn't work on in college, but it is the same kind of satellites that Josh worked in college. that are the size of the 1,000 cube that kids use in math class. So just about 10 centimeters cubed. And it's the story of the voyage of one of those CubeSats, and how the message being how something mini can really make a mighty difference.
Excellent. Now, I imagine that as a teacher, you see a lot of need for fresh content and fresh books with new perspectives. Is that one reason that you found yourself writing that first book and now a second book, or did it all just happen by chance?
No, I've always wanted to be a writer, but it never occurred to me to write nonfiction. When I teach, because of the Common Core, I teach special ed students, so I teach developing readers, and I really wanted to get them motivated to learn to read and to get excited about reading. So when Common Core came about, we had to read a lot more nonfiction, and I started creating a year-long science theme that my students would learn under. So this year we're working on oceanography. And when I started writing this book, I started it as a fiction book, and it just wasn't working. It was going to be a middle grade book, and I couldn't expand it the way I wanted. And then I started thinking, I love to teach nonfiction, and I love to teach through nonfiction picture books. Why don't I try writing this as a nonfiction picture book? And when I switched it, that's when I really felt that it was working. And that's when I started to send it out to publishers and decided that that was my niche. And it's great because the two really go hand in hand, the way I teach now and the way I write. So it just seems like it was really meant to be.
Now, is nonfiction picture books just as popular as fiction picture books? Do you know the ratio?
I don't know the ratio, but it is growing quite rapidly. And publishers are really looking for nonfiction picture books. And what's cool about nonfiction picture books is they're not the nonfiction picture books that we remember as adults, that were just kind of facts stated. There's actually 5 different kinds of nonfiction. Melissa Stewart, she's a wonderful author. She talks about different kinds of nonfiction. There's expository, which is more what we are used to, but that's presented in a much more fun way now. Mine is a narrative, and then there's several other types of nonfiction. So it's really making a big splash in the children's market these days.
Now, you mentioned the organization. Let me see if I get the acronym right. SCBWI.
Yeah,
Did I get
sorry,
the right order?
knows what that is.
Yeah. Could you tell us who that is and who's it for?
So it's the Society of Children Book Writers and Illustrators. It's an international organization that most writers who write for children belong to. What's fabulous is not only do we have the national organization that promotes children's authors and does conferences and workshops, incredible amount of learning experiences. There's one that's Michigan-based, so every state has one based in their state. And then there's also local chapters that we are able to go to different shop talks to learn different skills and stuff periodically. So it's been an incredible resource, and it's really because of SCBWI that I learned how to truly be a children's writer. I thought I knew a lot more than I actually did. And once I got started, I realized there was a lot to learn.
Well, I think all organizations are valuable if you know how to get the information from them and to use the organization. I've heard wonderful things about the SCBWI group, and everyone says that belonging to that, if that's your genre, is definitely a benefit.
Yeah, I think it's a must.
And did you join before or after your first book?
I joined definitely before my first book. I never would have had the success I had it not been for SCBWI. I had to learn a lot, and I had to take the time to do that.
Excellent. What tips and advice do you have for people that may be interested in doing what you've done, besides joining this organization, who wants to write a nonfiction picture book?
You have to read a ton of nonfiction picture books. And you want to read current nonfiction picture books because, as I said, the genre has changed quite a bit over the course of even just 10 years. There's fabulous biography picture books out there to read. And by reading, you can get a feel for what is actually on the market and what publishers are looking for. I also suggest taking different webinars. There's so much offered. Surprisingly, there's something called nicknamed like author Twitter. And if you get on Twitter and you start following authors and agents, you start learning about webinars. A lot of them are free. I've taken so many. Also taken some amazing courses through Rochester Writers. I've been to a couple of those conferences and learned a lot from that too. So it's really just like any other job. You have to train, you have to work, and then of course you have to practice. You have to write as much as you can and realize that anything you write, don't get rid of it because it may not be what you need right now, but you may want to pull it out for something else. So practice,
That's
practice,
very good.
practice, read.
Very, very good advice. Now, why don't we close with you telling everyone where they can go for more information, and if they want to purchase your book, how do they do that?
I have a website. It's SJL, which are the initials of my author name, at SuzanneJacobsLipshaw.com. You can find the book at Barnes & Noble online, Amazon online, through my publisher, Warren Publishing, and you can also find it through Target online, and at a lot of different libraries. So you can look at the libraries. There's several around the area that also carry the book, and if they don't, please feel free to request in Rochester Library.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing some time with us and the story of writing your book, and best wishes for more books from you. And we look forward to more authors here. We thank you to Suzanne Lipshaw for joining us today. We've got more on the second annual Authors Fair.